Alright guys, Tactical here, and I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. General Manager Anthony Method Zinni reveals what has been going on behind the scenes in the last few days in these contract negotiations between OpTic and the Los Angeles Thieves over the potential acquisition of Nium onto their team instead of Kenny, revealing that it's very interesting negotiations that have led to a situation with all parties seemingly getting what they want out of this development. But it does mean that Thieves, if they want to replace Kenny, they will have to make that decision relatively soon. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Lots to get into today. Just quickly to start with it, you guys may have seen this a while ago. We know the Esports World Cup has been a thing in COD for some time. There is also the Esports Nations Cup, which is effectively the World Cup, right? I mean, the World Cup is a club World Cup within reason. The Nations Cup is meant to be happening every couple of years, and it's actually meant to be, okay, a team from the UK, a team from Brazil, whatever. You guys can see some of the flags on the screen. Now, the idea is each region for each country per each game, that we're not sure which games they're going to be doing yet, but effectively they need a representative. And well, Bant is saying, look, maybe I will be the British representative to pull the team together, right? Because for example, Shotzzy, obviously not relevant for the UK, but for example, Shotzzy could probably play for both the US or Mexico. So the idea would be that your national kind of partner would be the one who tries to convince him to play for whatever country. Now, will this be relevant for COD? I guess time will only tell on that one. Another big update for the game yesterday is this. So this is Raid. This is where the wall used to come up to. This is where the wall here at Zigzag comes up to now. So if you go for a boozy, wall bounce, jump over this thing, you can't get the same angle you used to be able to get. Maybe on occasion you can make it happen from the inside of Zig over towards Kitchen, but it's still very challenging to do, and they've added this element to effectively make that no longer a viable strategy. Now, this is very interesting because, well, it's caused a lot of debate. A lot of people aren't happy about this change, although I will say, when the game was first released, we discussed this on the podcast about doing exactly this, because there was a feeling, especially for Raid Search and Destroy, that the ability to bounce over this wall and see over it into Kitchen especially from Zig was kind of game breaking. It gave the opportunity for a sniper rifle player in Zig to get an angle into Kitchen which didn't used to exist. Now, you could argue maybe they should have just turned around the timings or something, but I think this is an understandable change. I know that it feels like maybe they're trying to restrict what the game should become, but arguably Zig wasn't designed with this in mind, and if they had have designed it from the ground up today, they might have done this anyway, right? They've just added it further on. So I'm not too frustrated about this. It does change how the map will play, but it does make the middle of the map play more as it did in Black Ops 2, at least in terms of some of the opening gunfights, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. Does this make enough difference to make Raid more viable for some of the other game modes? Right now we're seeing it in Search but not elsewhere, maybe, but also, do we want Raid in for all the game modes if we have enough good maps elsewhere, especially given Fringe hardpoints coming in, maybe. Looney says, I hope that the hardpoint Fringe spawns are good, I'm begging for it, we've got to get some of these maps out of the game. He says, Blackheart or Colossus hardpoints have got to go. We'll see about that. I mean, well, Shitzaz says in the replies here to Kremp, are you seeing this? Because obviously Kremp lost this, right? He loves that map. Octane says it's got to be Colossus. So yeah, what do you guys think? If you had to get rid of one of the maps, which one would it be? Get rid of Blackheart for Fringe, get rid of Colossus for Fringe. I think most people would probably take Colossus out of the game, but yeah, and Twitter your thoughts on that in the comments section below. Blackheart still remains a bit of a bang out, certainly more than Fringe would be, so maybe that's a little bit better of a transition if Fringe is to be viable, which we're not really sure as of yet. Just also to quickly mention, I know a lot of you guys might have got additional tickets to the Birmingham event at the end of March yesterday. Apparently it's going to be one of the biggest events in the history of COD. As Adam App says, we are going to strategically place food and alcohol in the venue to avoid the mass migration of 5,000 plus fans between matches, just Birmingham fan issues. So apparently it's going to be a mega event. Very much looking forward to it. As we continue, we also have the SMG Pyramid we put together here for January. So in December, Huke I think was number 1. He's dropped down a couple of spaces. cases. Again, you know, you might argue that some of these changes here are overreactions. It's only been a few weeks of online qualifiers, and I do get that. I don't think we've done anything drastic really with the changes of the rankings. Simp's number 1. You could argue it should be Neptune. I can see the logic for that. Maybe you could argue that Shotzzy should still be in the top 3, and maybe I would, but he's had a pretty underwhelming start to the year. Certainly Huke has. Envoy's moved up 1. HyDra's dropped down into the 4th tier, which is, yeah, not necessarily what I expected. Snoopy's gone down, although, I don't know, I would have kept him up there personally. Whatever, that's what we put together in an average of all of our ratings over the last few days. But let's talk about the drama in Challengers and what it means for the Pro League in the coming days, because Challengers has been popping off in recent weeks. As we know, the CDL is officially back tonight with some banger games we'll talk about at the end of the video. But lots of the teams are investing a lot and committing plenty to their players. You know, the OpTic guys, the Huntsmen, they've got, you know, facilities set up. They're supporting those guys very well, and it's great to see. The Falcons, that's certainly true for. Clay reveals their academy teams, because they have 2. They've got salaries, they've got housing, they're making sure they've got English tutors going on, right? So, yeah, the Falcons, they're definitely taking care of their boys. There's no doubt about that. Definitely an organisation, if you're in Challengers, you wouldn't mind playing for. But yesterday was the 2nd day of the 1st week of the Elite, and as a result, some teams have qualified for the playoffs already. They played 2 games both days. If you get to 3 wins, because the 2 groups of 6 teams, top 4 teams advance. So if you get to 3 wins, it's guaranteed. If you get to, well, 0 wins with 4 losses, then it's basically guaranteed your elimination because of the single round robin nature. So Huntsmen were playing, the other teams were getting involved. Some surprising results. We'll have a look at a couple here in a second. A nasty little 3-piece there from Kips that, of course, Scump was watching. This is, I mean, probably equally nasty, really. Here we are on Den with a spot that I'd certainly not seen before from Hyde. If you hit a little jump here, you can go onto this platform and manage to bounce up out of the map, back into the map, and, well, that's quite the play. I mean, look at him. He's 13 in 6, pulling off stuff like that. Definitely going to turn some heads. I imagine there were probably quite a few pros as well that weren't aware this was a thing, but I'll just show it to you again. You probably have to get the movement pretty spot on here, but definitely a viable option. Unintended route. I don't know what Clayster would have to say on that back in the day. But Huntsmen, they went 1-1 on the day. They got 3-0'd by Project Notorious, and they 3-0'd the Cabal Gaming team. Of course, Nium is still on this roster, and that is a very interesting story that we are about to discuss in a little bit more detail. So they got 3-0'd by Notorious. That's 2 real Geo, Wake, and Yuli, which is, yeah, I mean, all those guys have had Pro League stints before. I mean, if that was the 12th best team in the league, you know, it's names that you might expect, right? You know what I mean? If you swapped out Ravens for this team, I don't think much changes. Huntsman, Kips, Nium, Renegade, and Raspy, of course. So, yeah, not the best series from them, but they did win against Cabal in a hot little 3-0. Renegade was actually fantastic in the series, and he has really been causing some attention and some heads to be turned, I think, in recent days, just because his improvement has been so dramatic. I don't know if we can really get a glimpse for that in watching his, like, matches or his, like, event stats or something. But yeah, like, he's played the cups, and like his cups, you see, like his cup 1 he had a point, or cup 2 he had a 0.83, cup 3 he had a 0.96, and in the elite now he's at a 1.18. So it shouldn't be a massive surprise. Like, Renegade is an absolutely top quality player. He has, I think, a little bit of COD experience before switching over at some point previously. He's obviously got a good setup surrounding him, unlike what Lqgend had when he went straight into the Pro League. And Renegade is improving at such a dramatic rate, I think, that you've got to watch out for this guy, because also he's a winner. He's champion, you know, world champion, right? So it's not like if you signed him, you're taking a chance on like an unknown rookie who's never had any experience in the Pro League, right? So that's what's exciting about this development, I think. Renegade is maybe becoming the hottest property on that Huntsman team, maybe apart from Nium. All those guys are good for sure, but we'll discuss a bit more on that in a second. Bush Gaming, they took down the Next Threat Black team. This was a 3-1, but then they got 3-2'd by 5 Fears. That's Eric Boom and those guys. So that leaves Bush in a little bit of a precarious position that we shall discuss in a second. The Falcons Academy boys square it off as well. QK had a 1.44 here. So he's been absolutely frying, and there has been a little bit of talk, I think even from Clay last night, that they're going to try to find a way to maybe loan him out. We talked about loans on the channel yesterday. We're going to talk about loans again in a couple of seconds. Maybe QK, if he's not going to be on the Falcons starting team, they could find an option for him because he's really been turning heads in challenges lately. Stallions Black, unfortunately for them, they got 3-0'd by Notorious. They're 0-4. They're cooked. Symbols rage quit the game, so EasyMac couldn't put the damage in. So, you know, unlucky, right? As EasyMac says, no damage for you, buddy. Back in the day, if someone would quit the game, EasyMac would give them the 0-30 stat line, but he seems to be avoiding that for the time being anyway, but it's still frustrating. These are the way the groups look. So get to 3 wins, you're in. So Group B, Notorious, Falcons Academy, Green Huntsman, they've qualified for the playoffs, no problem at all. The other teams are really fighting it out for that final spot. In Group A, there are also 2 teams, for Fun Esports and FaZe, that have got to 3-1. Bush, Brooklyn, Omit Brooklyn, and High Treason all at 2-2. Next threat, they're cooked, 0-4. So it's one of these, you know, 2 of these 3 teams will make it through. Bush have the best map count at 10-7 by some way, so they should be fine. But yeah, not all but guaranteed. You also don't really want to be the 4th seed. But let me share a couple of minutes of the OpTic podcast that Methods was talking about what's been happening in recent days with Nium, because we understand that Ravens are very interested. They scrimmed with him for a little while. They were going to sign him, but just as that was about to happen, Thieves stepped in. They made it clear their intentions to bring him on board to the Thieves as well. But the relationship they've negotiated is a very interesting one. Potentially can be good here for all parties, but it certainly means that Thieves have a decision to make very swiftly.
We let Carolina scrim with him. It worked out perfectly because one of the days Kips and Rispy were driving up here to move here. So we were like, yeah, you can have Nium this day. They asked if they can scrim with him again Friday, and I said, no, we have to practice. We have the qualifier Saturday. So we qualified with Nium. That was perfect. And then the Carolina ended up picking Nium. So we were essentially at the goal line for facilitating a deal with Carolina for Nium. No buyout or anything. It wasn't like we came to these crazy terms. It was us. It was essentially going to be a loan of Nium for the year, which was, okay, you guys aren't going to pay for him. We'll let you play with him. We want him to go to the Pro League. I got a call from Nium yesterday saying, yo.
And yesterday's Monday.
Yes, today's Tuesday.
The 5th.
So Monday about 3 p.m., essentially, we didn't execute the loan transfer yet. And Nium called me and he was like, hey, I got a message from the Thieves GM. He wants to chat. And I was like, do you want me to have a conversation? He's like, yes, please. So of course I started getting in contact with people at Thieves and just discussing what they wanted to do. And essentially we gave Nium the choice, right? Like, you have a guaranteed starting spot on Carolina. You know the terms that come with that. You have Thieves who right now do not want to make a starting change, but if their season in the near future is underwhelming, you are someone who they value very highly. So you can run the risk of not playing with Carolina short term, or potentially going to a team like Thieves.
Abe, HyDra, Scrappy, bro, you take that maybe all day long.
So Nium is playing with the Huntsman right now. Nium is back on the Huntsman. They're going to play their elite matches,
which are tomorrow.
We're entering a deal with Thieves that is a deal that they have access to Nium up until shortly after Major 1, if they choose to call him up.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at right now. And so essentially, Huntsman roster is not changing in the short term. Nium wants to bet on himself, and I told him, I said, bro, your stock is high, you're playing well. As long as you continue to show out, I don't see any reason why, even if it's not Thieves, I still see offers coming, right?
Yeah, Nium's gross. Got good comms, good awareness. He makes good plays, heads up plays all the time.
Good kid. Good. How old is he?
He's 23. He's been around for a little bit. He's not like
he told me that. He's like, man, it only took 5 years for me to get called up, and I'm like,
Yeah.
No, I've heard about him for a minute.
So for Ravens, the relationship was going to be OpTic, effectively Huntsman, loan him out to the Ravens. There's no buyouts, but you're going to pay, obviously, his salary, and then you're going to pay us some sort of fee for that loan arrangement, right? So that obviously would make sense. Now, for Thieves, it's a slightly different setup where he is there on loan if they want him in this time period. So for now, he's a Huntsman player, but they have, I would say, they've negotiated a first right of refusal to Nium for roughly the next 30 days. Zinni said that after Major 1, and you know, it's it's good business, I think, out of Zinni here, right? And it's, I think, a situation that is probably good for all parties in many respects, even for Nium as well, as we'll discuss. So he said shortly after Major 1 finishes on like the 1st of February, so let's just say 30 days. They've got maybe a week or a few days after Major 1 to decide what they want to do. But that's the time frame, right? So right now he's still a Huntsman player. Presumably Thieves are paying some sort of money to OpTic in order to maintain this first right of refusal. And then if they want to bring on Nium properly onto their starting team, they can execute that within that period following Major 1. And if they don't want to, then that option expires, that, you know, they've paid for this option, it will expire. And then it's all free game at that point, right? Nium would then be available again. So for OpTic, they make a bit of cheddar out of it. For Thieves, they've got an option if they want to ensure that they can get Nium rather than anyone else getting him, then that's what they can do. Nium, of course, preferred this arrangement than going to Ravens, which is understandable. But let's say Thieves turn up to Major 1, they come seconds. Kenny has a 0.95. They're probably feeling pretty good. Maybe they stick it out as a team, right? You would expect that in that scenario. And if that's true, then all of a sudden, you know, who knows what happens with a Lurqxx? This is the question. And I'm not saying a Lurqxx, they should have done the same thing with Omid or whatever. I think it's worked out for them because in this case with OpTic, no buyout involved. They would prefer to do a loan arrangement and take some money in exchange. Whereas for Omid, Rafi's model is more like, okay, we're going to have a buyout, you're going to pay it, and then, you know, you have the player now. But a Lurqxx, what if FaZe start frying and win the major? He might not play all season. Right now he's stuck on FaZe. Whereas for Nium, if Thieves start frying all of a sudden, then he has in a situation where he's not stuck on the sub bench doing nothing and loses career opportunities. You know, maybe Thieves fry at Major 1, Ravens looking a bit better. Okay, I'm not saying that Nium should go and sign the Ravens still, but it's something that's back on the table for him potentially again after this 30-day period. So it makes things interesting for Thieves because, you know, it appears they're paying some sort of money in order to give themselves the opportunity to sign Nium. So when you do that, psychologically, it's quite tempting to take it, right? There's something called the sunk cost fallacy. If you guys aren't familiar, you can look into it on your own time. But it's not especially complicated. Basically, the idea is if you've already spent money on something, you want to see it through to the end. So, you know, if these are paying some sort of first right of refusal fee to OpTic, then it's going to be kind of tempting to execute on that, especially if the team doesn't perform on Major 1. So that is the dynamic. These are the current CDL standings. And we also have some matches tonight. Although I will say tonight's matches are not especially enthralling. We do have the new Ravens, of course, with Exceed in the roster. They play Miami, and we have Falcons, Minnesota. And that's it for the day. So, yes, I'll probably do a video tonight. We'll see. I don't know. Depends if any of these are interesting. But hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.